every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi. All right. So hi, beautiful people. If you've never been in here before, my name is Celeste. I am a therapist from Boston. And my goal in coming on here is to just help you shift the way you think. Hey, Cook Dog. Hey, Missy. So I am streaming on 3 different platforms. I am on Facebook. Sorry, I still got a little bit of food on I was trying to eat something really quick. Okay. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, and I am on Periscope. And so over the last 4 weeks, I decided to take my podcast and put it on video. So now what I was already doing with my podcast, the audio for everyone that's been following my podcast, now you get to see me live in action talking to people. So I'm beyond grateful to all of my guests that agree to come on video. It's not always easy, but I'm appreciative of it. So today we got a special guest. I want to kind of jump into the show because I'm really excited to really learn about this brain integration and what it means. So I really want to make sure that I make enough time for that. So I'm going to introduce Jackie, who is going to introduce herself, and then I'm going to kind of like learn about her and her story. I'm going to introduce her to the stream right now.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Let me turn my volume down a little bit so I can get you in here clear. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing good. How are you?
Can you just introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, so my name is Jackie Gorman. I'm a cross-analogy brain integration practitioner. I use acupressure, kinesiology, and physiotherapy techniques to help rewire the brain. I specialize in a lot of different things. I work with clients that have ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, and other learning challenges. I also work with a lot of people that have anxiety, depression, PTSD, emotional traumas. And then there is another, subset. I see a lot of people with chronic illness, like toxicity issues as well. Not necessarily to detox them, but chronic illness, there's a lot of emotions to process as you're going through that healing journey. So I've helped a lot of people with that as well. Autoimmune, that type of thing. So it's been really interesting. I've been doing it for 3 years, 2 years in 2 different locations. I work in Norwell and Quincy. I work at the Zendan in Norwell and Whole Body Solutions in Quincy. So
awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that you are specializing in, and the fact that it's brain integration, I'm not surprised that it covers a wide range of different issues, right? Because everything kind of starts in our brain.
Right. Exactly.
So I just kind of want to understand like how you got into this field that you're in, because it sounds innovative and new. It could just be I just don't know about it. But it feels like really new and exciting. So how is it that you get into this particular field?
So like all brain integration practitioners, we find it by being a client ourselves first. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a comment on the bottom. That's cool. Hi, Michaela. Yeah, so I was a client before I endeavored to become a practitioner. I actually was a chef beforehand. I was a private chef, cooking a lot, doing private dinners on Martha's Vineyard in the summers, and it was really fun, but I got really burnt out. I think that's what happens when you're not fully aligned with what you're meant to be doing for the long haul. And so I had all the symptoms that are listed on that chart that you were just referring to earlier, like anxiety, depression, brain fog, like nobody's business. I definitely had learning challenges even before all of the cooking and stuff like that. I think many people that I work with too would agree that it's one thing that overlaps to another, that overlaps to another of stress over a lifetime that you're just like, I need some help.
Mhm.
I'm not like the person that I should or want to be. I need to like step out of my own like bubble right now. And I went into that first brain integration appointment. It literally felt like someone had turned the lights back on in my brain. And I'm like, which
Tell me,
was
what does that look like? Like, what do you mean? Because that's so interesting. I think I hear a lot about the cranial nerve and how sometimes medicine can end up suppressing some of people's like passions and emotions,
yeah.
and a lot of people struggle with that. So for you to like call it like it felt like the lights turned on, like what does that feel and look like for you when that
Right.
happened?
Right. The room gets brighter. I know it's all these qualitative notes, and it's different for everybody. People feel lighter. They feel like their eyesight gets better.
Wow.
Yeah, they have a better sense of self. And what I'm referring to is the first thing that we turn on is this thing called deep level switching, which is the
Hmm.
3 different directions the brain runs in, and they're responsible for different things. Front back switching is referral to the past or the future, but it's hard to say in the present when it's not switching correctly.
Hmm.
Right left switching is confusion of hemispheres, which really goes back to the deriving name of this work called brain integration. The real goal of brain integration is to gain access to both sides of the brain by
Mm.
alleviating those pathways through the techniques in acupressure and kinesiology to kind of just release those blockages, for a better term. There's definitely a better term than blockages, but that's what I'll go
No,
with
we
for
need the
now.
basic one. I need the basic because I'm learning from scratch. So I like the
Yeah.
blockages. That sounds good.
Yeah. So, like I'm saying, the process of brain integration is to gain both sides of the brain. Most of us have a dominant side.
Yep.
You'll always have a dominant side, but you want equal activity. You want 100% access to both sides, so that if you needed to pull a file from the logic side of the brain, and say you weren't that great at math before brain integration,
Hmm.
pulling that file of information is going to be way faster, way more efficient, and you're more capable of studying harder subjects afterwards. I've definitely seen that as I just continue to devour knowledge. I'm like, I couldn't learn like this before.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really cool. So that's more of like the experience of treating the learning challenges portion. But all of that said, that brightness, that clarity feeling that I was talking about comes from turning on that deep level switching that I was talking about. So those 3 different directions. The
Okay.
top bottom is the one that I didn't mention, and that's like those cyclical thoughts, feeling like you have too many tabs open in your brain, that sort of thing. So we calm that down as well.
I
Um,
like the way you describe that, the tabs in your brain. I think about my computer. If I have too many
yeah,
windows open, I'm freaking out. Like I got to close some because I get so overwhelmed.
yeah, I have 10 open. It's okay. So funny. But yeah, it's overwhelming for people. They lose their train of thought, and it just makes us ineffective for, fulfilling the things that we want to do in our lives. And it just opens up so many more opportunities when you have the clarity, the drive. Uh, Clarity is the best word, because when you know what you want, your brain gets there just so much faster.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, and so it's a protocol. So I studied under Susan McCrossin. She's the founder of the work. That's why I said I was a crossinology brain integration practitioner, because
Mhm.
if you went on YouTube and looked up brain integration, you would find many different types. There's a lot of different ways that people have worked with the neuroplastic nature of the brain and developed
Mhm.
therapies that effectively rewire it. It's just a matter of how they do it. And the way we do it is through acupressure and kinesiology, identifying those specific wires through those acupressure formats that have been researched to, uh, you know, turn them back on. And we turn them back on through the frontal occipital hold. There are other ways in applied kinesiology to relax
Can
the
you explain what that means? I can't even pronounce what you just said. Say it
yeah.
again.
So it's the frontal frontal bone right here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, frontalis muscle.
Ah.
Occipital bone right here in the back, and you hold both at the same time. The
All right. So
practitioner
for my
does.
audience that's listening on the audio, she's holding her the front of her head and the back of her head. So go ahead.
Yes, at the same time. And that's a technique that they use to relax the nervous system and help retrain and create those new wires in the brain. And for you, those that are sitting at home watching this right now, you can even just sit there. No batteries on you as you do this. I have headphones in right now. But if you have a phone in your pocket or keys, take those out, put them down. You want your field to be clean as you work on it. Because batteries will interrupt that flow that you're working on in the nervous system. But you're going to hold front and back, and you're going to wait until you feel an equal pulse on both sides of the head, and it's going to definitely feel relaxing. It's more of a general balance because you're not adding in any of the acupressure points, so you're not doing the very specific wiring that we do as practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
But what that looks like is holding the front and back. What you're going to start to feel is a pulse, but you'll start to feel it like at the front or the back first on its own. Then you might start to feel a thing where it's like a heartbeat, where it's like boom, boom, boom,
Whoa.
boom. Yes, exactly. And then you're going to want to hold on for between 1 to 3 minutes where it starts to beat at the same time. 1, 2, 3, something like that nature is what you're going to feel as you hold it on there. And that's the nervous system totally relaxing down, which is what we all need right now because it's so insane out there.
Wait, I wanted to ask you a question that Michaela brings up. She says releasing those fears, traumatic experiences, and anxiety. Why is it that it gets trapped inside of us? I kind of want you to explain it from your perspective. This is something that I've learned over the years is that we can hold on to pain, and like our body kind of keeps the score. And because we can't see it, like literally, we can't look at it, but we can actually learn to feel it and things like that. Tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, so trauma is interesting. Trauma is another reason why I got into this as a practitioner. I had probably 2 or 3 traumatic experiences between 16 and 22 that, and I think everybody, when we talk about trauma, it doesn't have to be the significant thing. It can be these micro things or things from even childhood over a long period of time. I don't have to explain this to the therapist, but
no, but you're talking to my audience, Jackie.
yeah.
I love it. Like you're speaking my language. I love this so much. Go ahead, I'm listening. Sorry.
Yeah, and so it sounds like you've read that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
I did. I love it so much. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
That trauma can hide in the tissues. It can cause dysfunction in the way we respond to stressors later on. Somebody could say something that triggers you, that and you can't even the weird thing is that you can't always pinpoint what triggered you, what caused you to have this reaction for such a sustained period of time. There's many different ways that it can manifest, but the way I look at it as a practitioner when I'm helping someone relieve those wires is that sometimes I don't have to revisit the event at all, given the way that this works. Through kinesiology, you can rewire the limbic system without having to do any sort of there's other limbic retraining things that are exercises, that sort of thing. But through the formats, you can actually create relief in those networks without ever talking about what happened. Now, sometimes I have to talk about what happened with the person, but I don't do that right at the start. That's not really how I go about it. Is I do the first couple of balances to just relax the system down. And then I ask very vaguely, and the person doesn't even need to talk about it, but if they think about it, the physiology changes the way that the whole neurochemistry changes, and so the muscle test will change based on that, based on creating that physiological change. So that allows me to go in deeper by checking through the acupressure protocol, et cetera, to see what is off then when the person thinks about it. So that's how I can refine and make sure that the balances are working correctly, and make sure that when I have the person leave the office, they're in a good place.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I always tell people there's more than one way of healing. I think in our culture,
Yeah.
American culture, we only talk about therapy and psychiatry. So to hear you talk about this is truly amazing to me. I'm curious, like a client, what do they do? Like they're coming in to see you. Like, what would be the first step to somebody going in to see a brain integration person?
Well, usually I bring them through an assessment that takes me like 10 minutes, and I assess things like balance, which, these things, it's funny. I list out all these categories earlier, like PTSD, emotional trauma, all these things, they're kind of related, someone had ADD back in the day, but their attention span, created XYZ. They became anxious, they became depressed. So it's just like this weave of different things that are happening all together. So when I see someone, I check them for everything. The design of the Crossinology protocol was to efficiently go through everything that they assess in the Wisc test, which is part of assessing someone for a learning disability, right? So I'm not going to be the one that does, I'm not going to be the neuropsych evaluation person, but we can skip the step of the neuropsych evaluation when it comes to creating a change in someone's learning performance. It's definitely necessary to get those assessments, but in that process, I'm checking balance, I'm checking visuospatial functions, I'm checking, do they march well? Meaning, do they cross crawl well? Does information flow to right and left side of the brain well? Are they coordinated enough? How do their eyes move? Eyes are huge with trauma, relieving trauma. We know that with EMDR becoming
EMDR,
much
yeah.
more popular. Yep. So when I have someone focusing to the left, there's different problems with that. It's not just can their eye muscle move to the left, is you kind of go into the psychology of looking to the left. What does that mean? What does looking down mean? Looking down is more of an emotional memory. So if someone has trouble looking down, I'm looking at it from that perspective as well. Looking up, do they have trouble with that? Looking up is referring to visual memory. So if they can't look up well, they're not going to store memories as well as the person next to them, that does. So I find it funny when people are like, oh, my brain just works that way. I'm like, it doesn't just work that way. We can fix that, And I know that we all have our, we're good at certain things, we're bad at certain things, but I think it's an incredible tool to actually really just go in for 1 hour and address certain functions that, brain integration helps on an electrical. It's like I'm an electrician basically, and I'm going in and I'm turning things back on. And so it seems like magic, but it's really a piece of, the greater piece of the puzzle of medicine that just hasn't been happening until lately. This work that was founded by Susan McCrossin was developed 30 plus years ago. There's 100 of us in the country. That's not a lot. There's 11 of us in New England, and there's there's one person in LA. There's 4 or 5 people in Seattle-ish area. There's not that many of us. However, there are other applied kinesiologists. There are other people doing other types of work that are great. It's just that this is a very specific protocol in the way that we're trained to address these specific areas of the brain. So
the part about when people say, well, my brain works that way, I think Michaela's saying about the conditioning, I feel like we can get comfortably uncomfortable
Yes.
living a certain way that it becomes our norm, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why people kind of operate that way. Do you feel like years and years ago, before like technology and all of these things, we didn't have as much issues because we didn't have a lot of distractions or a lot of things that kind of swayed us one way or the other?
Yeah, I really worry about my clients. I have a special place in my heart for the 5 to 11-year-old boys that come in that are addicted to video games. I really worry about them
Mhm.
because I do see it. I see it between sessions that the weeks that they overly indulged in those types of um, activities, it really does change what I see on the table from my perspective in acupressure. The
Mm.
neurotransmitters balance needs to be done again. There's a lot of different things that need to be turned back on just from that activity, from high exposure to being on the computer, all those graphics, etc. That I mean, it's crazy that you can watch those 60 minutes videos on how these app developers have specifically designed them in a way that excite our neurotransmitters and make them more addictive. So I do worry about
Mm.
that. I remember in my training as a brain integration practitioner too, is that we've become more concerned about our attention span because we're asked as a society to handle more than we did before the information age really did hit.
Mhm.
Our expectations on how far people should be educated, et cetera. I mean, not everybody went to college. Now people are being pushed into college
Mhm.
that might do better in the trades, might do better. We're not all meant for a specific direction, but it is interesting that with with setting higher expectations as to where people should go in life, we create these expectations to fill, people into that bubble and support them. But I
Mhm.
want to support people no matter where they go. I think it's
Mhm.
important to have a clean brain no matter what you do.
I
And
like that idea, a clean brain. How to
yeah,
and part of cleaning it, I guess, it's like we can't erase our trauma, we can't erase what's happened, but we can work on integrating it. And I think a lot of us
yeah,
are so for me, like if I see a client and they're telling me their story, it sounds very traumatic on the first day. I automatically know that they're very disconnected from this story, um,
yes,
which is a huge problem
yeah,
because a lot of things that are taking place, they're struggling with making the connection. So it's so interesting to hear on your end how it looks like for you, like because I say to people, I'm like, there's something happening in your brain. I don't know how to explain it because I
yeah.
didn't go to school for that. But you're literally telling me what is happening in our brain, and it's so fascinating to hear about this.
Right. And what's interesting is that as neuroscience gets its like claim to fame right now, like all this information that we have about the brain right now, it's not as mysterious as much anymore. And we can take that information and integrate it into our practices and make it very applicable to helping people get better and more informed. I feel like when you understand how and why your brain works in a certain situation, you can heal so much faster.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you won't accept the fact that this is just the way that I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, well, that was the other thing I was gonna mention was the epigenetics factor, right? Is the fact that now that we understand how our genes work, it's not just that they work, they affect me this way, is that there's an environment that surrounds that entire genetic pool that can influence the way they are characterized in our everyday life. Whether that's leading to disease, leading to specific learning challenges, the way our brain works, the way certain hormones function, XYZ. Um, there's there's a really good book called "It Didn't Start with You." That's for a good reading for anybody. Where it's a therapist. I think he's a therapist. I think he does psychiatry. I could be
Mhm,
wrong.
mhm,
He does therapy though, and he did these sessions with people after he traveled and learned a lot more about himself, where he realized that in order for some of his clients to heal from certain traumas, it wasn't even traumas that they were really aware of. They had to step into the foot of their ancestors in order to and completely understand and heal their experiences before moving forward.
Wow.
Which was crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I like to think that we can help with changing people's physiology. The the program was based around learning anatomy and physiology, and really how these acupressure formats can really address, as it say, subconscious reprogramming. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Thank you, didactic data. um,
That's good.
cool.
Somebody asked about telemedicine, and it sounds
Yeah.
like a lot of the work you do have to do with
Mhm.
hands, a
Yeah.
hands-on approach, right?
It's funny. I do have clients that have wanted to do telemedicine. I've been trying it out with like 2 or 3 people just for my education in this standpoint. The appointments have gone well. They're not the same as what I do in person, and so I don't think I'm gonna endeavor in doing the telemedicine.
Oh, you was embarking upon it a little bit because of what's happening with the quarantine.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So I just wanted to try it out and see maybe I could offer some help among the quarantine from far away. But
Mhm,
it doesn't have the same effect.
mhm, mhm.
Therapeutic touch is definitely a lost art. I work in a clinic at Zenden as well that's based around helping people with their physical pain. It's a combination of neurosensory exercises,
Wow.
yeah, and then manual therapy and corrective exercise. And I've learned a lot and become a better practitioner for working in there. Um, but there's no if you went to regular PT, what happens is many times they use machines, right? And they do help the practitioner. They don't help you wear out as quickly. It is very exhausting to be hands-on with people all the time.
Yeah.
Whether you're chiropractic, massage, etc. Sometimes it is nice to have a machine, but there is an art to therapeutic touch that is lost in some areas and embraced in others, but I do you work with autistic children? Yes, I do. Yep, I do. Um, when it comes to autistic, it comes down to working with a couple different practitioners, more than me. If they want to reach out, they can just shoot me an email.
Um,
Um,
so I don't want to go too deep into this because I do want you to give us some tips
mhm,
around. But when I think about like how you say like the art of touch is lost and that type of thing, do you feel that with like well in America, we are only pushing pharmaceutical meds on prescription medication for an issue, and we're not thinking outside of the box about the things that we are dealing with or ways that we can like work helping ourselves.
I think I think I'm a lot more optimistic now about the balance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are quick to judge, pharmacology,
Mhm.
and its interruptions in, you know, our lives, etc. I think physicians are doing a lot more education right now.
Oh,
I think they are. I see it anyway, on a professional, like one-on-one with doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses, and they're doing a lot to learn about everything that we're talking about here. The question is, how do they integrate it into a practice effectively in the business models that they have?
yeah.
So it's going to take some time to make that really happen. So I'm not I'm not going to. I think everybody can agree that the brain is neuroplastic and that our thoughts do change the way our body feels. There have been miraculous recoveries of all different types of things with the introduction of the complementary medicines as well. But we need both,
Well, we need
Yeah.
both, but sometimes I don't think the other part is introduced. But
Yes.
it
Yeah.
sounds, and I don't know if I think like with the opiate stuff and all that stuff is
Oh, I
making
know.
people like educate people more around different things,
I completely
or going
agree.
to like a pain clinic and learning or acupuncture, those type of things.
Yeah.
I think that probably is why you're probably seeing a shift.
Yeah.
But I think we need both. Like it's not just linear. I feel like it has to take a holistic, like your food,
Yes.
like all your movements, like so many different things that I don't think there's enough of education around. But that's
Right.
good that you're optimistic about it.
Yeah. No, I am. There's a whole, right. It, it takes time, I don't think people like they read something and they get so excited, like, oh, nutrition, blah, 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 blah. This is so exciting. It is. I love to learn about all that stuff. But what happens is the practitioner needs to learn it and learn it well over a period of time, introduce it into the practice and become comfortable with that, and then realize how to specifically adjust those recommendations per person and not make it just blanket statements.
Yes.
You know what
I
I
love
mean? So it
that.
just takes time. So when people get frustrated with their practitioners, like their GPs that, quasi believe in certain things, it's just, it just takes time, education, discovering successful, there are a lot of therapies out there that, like you said, certain therapies are good for certain people. Like it's not a one size fits all kind of
Time.
thing, which can be so frustrating for the
I
person
know.
trying to look for help, you know, especially when you are traumatized or when you are stressed, when you have some of these things that we've talked about. It's hard to click into your intuition and say, this is what's going to help me, you
Right,
know?
right, right.
So,
So don't be afraid to ask questions.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
okay to ask questions.
Yeah,
Before you leave,
yeah,
I really want you to help give us some tips because you can't touch us.
yes, exactly.
Can you like help us from like the comfort of our home to kind of do something that can like help us? Because I know there's a lot of different emotions that are going on with people,
Yeah.
and that way we can kind of see what you do a little
Yeah,
bit.
totally. So I can teach you an emotional balance that actually would probably work out really well.
Okay.
So to just introduce all these things that I'm going to teach you are a combination of acupressure, applied kinesiology, and physiotherapy techniques.
Okay.
The reason why it may look a little different is because it's an integration of sciences that aren't usually taught, um, to the mainstream. But this is how it works. So in any balance, the end result is that you're gonna hold your head, like I taught earlier, that general balance where you can just hold front and back. If you don't remember anything from this besides this, just hold your head. It looks so simple. Wait till you feel that equal pulse on both sides of the head, right? At the same time, not this like 1, 2 kind of situation. You want them at the same time. So that can take a little bit, especially if it's your first time. It's important to be hydrated. It's important to not have any electromagnetics on you, just because that interrupts with the field. So when you're doing this, it's really nice to do this laying down in your bed. You can do it standing up. But to do any balance, we use the mudras that are part of the yogic system. So for emotion mode, you're going to hold your thumb to your ring finger, pad to pad. The rest of the hand is open, and that's emotion mode. So you're going to hold emotion mode. I'm going to stand up to do this so you can see my legs at the same time. But you hold this. Your legs are together. Well, you can't see it actually, so I'm going to sit down. But your legs are together.
Mhm.
Okay. You're going to think about something that's been bothering you. Okay. A very
Mhm.
specific event if you want to. Um, Why did my stimulus check come through? Why didn't this come through? Whatever you want to worry about in that moment. Step out 1 to 3 feet. Okay. Once your legs are, your hips are open 1 to 3 feet, you can let go of emotion mode, and you're going to hold the head front and back.
Oh, wow.
So the principle behind this is that this is a pretty advanced concept, so if it's hard to catch on to how this would work, you can email me and we can talk all day about it. But so anatomically, there's a relationship between the jaw and the hips. I say this out of that's a chiropractic knowledge, where you can fix someone's TMJ on the other end of the spine by fixing hip adjustments as well.
Wow.
So that's a separate thing, but there is an energetic relationship between the jaw and the hip as well. So what you've done is you've stored that energetic information temporarily in your hips. Sounds a little out there. Just bear with me. You will feel better. So we'll go over that again. Emotion mode. Your legs are together, right? Step out 1 to 3 feet. Okay.
Mhm.
Hips are open 1 to 3 feet. You can let go, and then hold the head front and back.
Are you squeezing it tight, or are you just kind of like relaxed with
Hold on.
it?
Headphones in that I took out.
Oh.
I can hear you. What were your questions?
Oh, are you squeezing it tight, or are you just tapping it?
It doesn't matter. Just contact between thumb and pinky.
Okay.
Thumb and finger. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So,
Is this something that
just
people would do
contact.
like repeatedly for different thoughts? Would it be like, what's the thought? And
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, exactly. So I would you can do that because these are so simple. They're not like complex circuits that I would
Mhm.
do in person with people. You could do that for the same issue up to like 3 times, And
Mm.
what's interesting too is that as you do one balance, your perspective may change. Oh yeah, how much pressure are you holding on your head? Just light touch. You don't need to squeeze it, but just contact on both, full palm. Um, the other thing that I've studied too is polarity therapy. Polarity is how energy runs in the body. It's instead of brain integration, what I just did is basically a polarity balance. It's pulsing. That's the name of the technique. Um, Polarity therapy teaches the practitioner to use that similar principle for the rest of the body. And in polarity,
Oh.
they teach you that your hands have different charges to them. Pinky is positive, negative, neutral for the thumb. And so when you use all 5 fingers and both sides, you're using a neutral contact. So that's why it's important
Mm.
to do the full hand. Does that make sense?
Mm. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
This was really helpful. I'm so grateful
Yeah, you're so
to you
welcome.
for coming on. I learned
Yeah.
so much. I'm like like I have these like goosebumps right now because everything that I tell people is happening in your brain. You're explaining it to me. I didn't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And now I have a lot of language. And one thing that Jackie said earlier is that when we are educated around like things, so I educate people around like what healing looks like. It's not a linear thing.
Right.
And for you to understand like what's happening in your brain, I think there's so much power in that because you start to feel like, you know what, I don't have to like accept this for like, this is my norm. I'm uncomfortable in this like norm that I'm in.
Right.
So I think that it's powerful to like really educate yourself around the brain.
Yeah. It's awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's
Yes.
been really fun. Yeah, it's so nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say bye to my guests.
Yeah. Bye.
The brain is a very mysterious organ. My heart is so warm. Yeah, it is a mysterious organ. Oh my gosh. And thank you, Michaela. So Michaela was on my show was it a couple of weeks now? Geez, a couple of weeks ago, and Manifest Peace, and we meditated, and she told me about Jackie. So My mind is blown right now. I want like so much more. I want to know so much more, but I want to be like in her presence. I would love to be in her presence while I'm learning, because this is like amazing. So Jackie is one of many people, right, that I've had on that can help us shift the way that we think. My hope for you is that, you know, when you hear people like Jackie come on and kind of talk about like what they do, and in her case, the brain, like the brain is such a amazing thing in our body that I don't think we do not appreciate it the way we should. I think that like we take it for granted, and knowing that there's like these things that we can do to help integrate ourselves is powerful. So I'm just beyond grateful. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you so much. If you want to visit my website, celestetherapist.com, and find me there. You can find me on all social media platforms. Thank you guys. Love you guys so much. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later.
Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the therapist. Let's go.